And welcome. Welcome to the Italian American Museum. Welcome to our new space here on Grand Street. In the future, you will be able to enter through this door on the back. Actually, you'll be able to leave through that door this evening if you choose to. It'll be much easier. Most people are used to coming into the Mulberry Street side because those who have been before knows that this space was not available. We just recently completed this space, and we're now, this is actually our second program that we've done in here. It's got a few more things need to be done. I'm very pleased and proud that this has taken us a while to get done, but when you consider the journey that we've been on, it's really a short time. With most enterprises such as museums take years and years and years for development. Most of us are familiar, and many of us go to some of the illustrious museums in New York City, like the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And you know, every time I get discouraged, I would go to the little plaque that's on the front of the main entrance as you walk up the stairs, and I see the name Luigi Palma di Cesnola, who was the first director of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. He was a count, but he was a Civil War colonel fighting on the Union side. Went to Cyprus, picked up a collection, and as a result of that collection, it became part of the basis for the original Metropolitan, and had 3 incarnations before it ended up on Fifth Avenue. And I really felt that if we're going to preserve any piece of what's left of Little Italy, the Italian American Museum is going to have to do it. That's what New York is. So that's why it's so important that we are here in New York City, that we are here in Little Italy, that the Italian American Museum is here, and that we will still be able to tell the story of the Italians in New York. So I welcome you into our new space. I'm delighted that you joined us this evening, and I'm particularly delighted because this is a special day for me and for coming up on March 19th, for me and for all of those of you who have a Joseph in your family, and there's a Josephina in the room, and maybe a Josephine, and I know there's another Joseph in the room as well. So it's a special day which my family always celebrated, but I didn't know why. And I didn't know why, and I always wanted to know why. And that's what this lecture and talk about. These are what are as you might imagine, little mascots that are given out on St. Joseph's Day. This one is from the Passionate Mission in Jamaica Estates. I go there every year on retreat. This one here, which I have inside this little plastic bag, which was given to me when I went to New Orleans, is another one which has a very, very beautiful prayer and inside of it, which I'm going to read to you in a little bit. And inside of it has some of the traditional pastries that they give out in New Orleans. And I'll talk more about New Orleans in a while. But you have the little fig pastry, and you have the marzipan inside here as well. So you have those 2 little things. And they also give out some other trinkets, which I'm going to explain. Now, St. Joseph, of course, is not only revered in America, but more importantly, he's revered in Italy. March 19th in Italy, as most of you probably know, is a very special day. It's their Father's Day. Italy being a Catholic country, and St. Joseph, of course, being the foster father of Jesus Christ, it is considered Father's Day. It's a very special day. It's particularly special in one part of Italy, and that part of Italy is Sicily. We have the Mediterranean Sea. And all around the Mediterranean, you have, of course, right across from Sicily, which is right here at the tip of the boot, you have, Libya and Algeria, you have the Middle East, and then of course you have Spain, and then and of course Turkey and Greece, right there in the middle. Sicily is smack there in the middle of the Mediterranean, geographically located in an incredibly advantageous but also dangerous place. Dangerous because of all the different peoples that have ruled and come through Sicily. I mean, the first, of course, were the Phoenicians, and after the Phoenicians came the Greeks, and the Greeks were there 2,000 years ago. It was considered to be Magna Graecia, Greater Greece, for those of you who know this part of the history. As a matter of fact, the greatest Greek city, the largest Greek city, was not Athens. Who knows? Syracuse, of course, who knows? Of course, yes, Archimedes. Syracuse, and of course the beautiful amphitheater that they have there, and of course you have all these beautiful temples in Agrigento as well, that are still better preserved than the ones in Athens. So many different peoples, and of course later on the Normans came through as well, but more, and the Arabs absolutely. More important than the Saracens, it was really the breadbasket of not only Italy, but of the Mediterranean. It was agriculturally very rich. They developed the land very early on, and they were able to have many different crops. The most important one probably being wheat. There had been no rain for a long time to nourish the crops that sustained the life on the island. The dried out crops cracked beneath the feet of the peasants, the farmers, but they weren't peasants, they weren't farmers, they were serfs. Because they were under Spanish rule at the time. They cracked through the Bourbon Empire. They cracked through the barren fields. Only dust and withered vines remained from what had once been known upon rows of bright colored fruits and vegetables and wheat. And so the people prayed. And who did they pray to? They prayed to Saint Joseph for relief from the terrible famine that gripped the land. At last the skies opened up and rain water came down. The people rejoiced. For their gratitude, they prepared tables of food, which they served up to the poor, those who were less fortunate. Therein comes the idea of the St. Joseph's table. And you've been watching the St. Joseph's tables from a very special part of the United States. Not that they were the Sicilian descendants, but this was in New Orleans, Louisiana. This was many of you know that this area of Little Italy was the largest Italian-American center in the United States in 1920. But prior to 1900, the largest immigration of Italians, Sicilians mostly, came to the south. And the city they came to was New Orleans. And this was in the 1860s. Right? So it was a long time before the 1880s, and it was the first real immigration that came in. So when you go down to New Orleans, which I've been, and I think some of you know, someone you'll hear from later, Stephanie Trudeau will speak as well, they have a long tradition, and they're very proud of their heritage. Very proud. They keep those traditions alive in some very unique Southern Sicilian and Southern American ways, and you'll see some of that soon. But the tradition of the tavola to feed the poor was maintained. Now, over time, it has morphed. I mean, most people don't need the food as much as they needed it in those days, fortunately. Little Palermo, which was a section of New Orleans. Not where the French Quarter is actually, it was Little Palermo. It was the area where the Italians really congregated. And the people that they congregated the most were the African Americans. That's because they were staying in the same quarters with them. So they worked side by side. But they maintained their traditions. They made the tradition of the St. Joseph's table. And it's become very elaborate. And so they've made it into something bigger than what it was. Well, the same thing is what they've done with these tables, with these St. Joseph's tables. They become elaborate feasts, whether they're in a church or they're in a private home. And it's particularly in New Orleans, there's many in private homes. This one is in St. Ignatius in New Orleans, and this is obviously in a church. So they still maintain their tradition. Now, I find it so interesting because you go down south into New Orleans, and they have these heavy Southern accents. I mean, and with these twangs, and with these big Italian names, which they're very proud to have maintained, and yet They're they're like 6 generations in America, but yet they're still maintaining this. Now, those of you who have gone to New Orleans, if you've gone during the Feast of St. Joseph, anybody here gone during the Feast of St. Joseph? Besides, yeah, it's an incredible experience. There was a picture in one of the papers, the Picayune, this morning, which I don't have a copy of, but I saw it online, with the huge bowl of pasta that they made. They've taken it to an extreme. I mean, it's as big as from here to where the other side of the podium is, and filled up with spaghetti and meatballs. And they have a big party in the Hilton Hotel. And I've been at that party. I've been fortunate to be at it, and it's just an incredible. Just to see the culture thriving and being so proud of it. This is a family. This is inside a family home. You can see. Here you have another one with the cakes and the pastries, the sphinge in the front, which we'll talk about later, when you'll get a demonstration of. This one's quite elaborate, with the St. Joseph's pictures on top of the cakes. St. Joseph's bread, and Stephanie will talk more about the breads later.
We should go back to that, because I just wanted you to point out something, because it's a really nice, clear picture of it. The little bowl of breadcrumbs, molika, it's the sawdust. It's St. Joseph's sawdust, because he was a carpenter.
Right.
So there's always bowls of molika.
Right. And we have a picture after of the pasta con sardi.
And it's,
And
you
so
always
that
put
you should put it
molika on the pasta.
on the pasta, exactly. Now this one in the foreground, which looks a little ominous with the eyes, this is St. Lucy's eyes. As you know, she would refuse to give up her faith and had her eyes plucked out for it. And these are actually figs. So they do a lot with figs. I mean, it looks a little bit, but then in the background you can see the sandals made out of bread. So they do these incredible artistry. Now also, they also have, obviously you make donations to the poor. You put money in the front as well. There's this thing. Fish is very big, especially in Sicily. So we're surrounded by all that water in the Mediterranean. You can have all different types of fishes that they have. Here's another one on the table, and you can see they made the bread into a rosary bead in the middle of it as well. This is another one, the rosary bead in the front, and then you have the different breads, and you have some cassata in the back too, which is the Sicilian pastry, very sweet. The cake made into a cross. And in the foreground, you can see the little bean that I gave you when you came in. I hope everybody got one. I'm going to show you that again in a minute, towards the end of this, and explain a little bit more about it. This is another very elaborate one. And here they have some more of the breads with the figs. You can see the very, very highly decorated. I don't think, Stephanie, you have any with the figs, but you have some very.
No, that's not Sicilian.
Right.
I mean, in Sicily, that's New Orleans.
Right.
It's beautiful, though. I mean, I love that.
This is another one in the home. Okay. I said this was in New Orleans, and when you think of New Orleans, you don't think of St. Joseph's. What do you think of? Mardi Gras, right? Which really was the Carnival of Venice, which we had last week when we had our presentation here. But that's what it's all about. But because Mardi Gras is such a big part of New Orleans, the Sicilian Americans have their own marching band. And they do it on St. Joseph's Day. Now, I had the privilege of being in one of the floats one year. It's changed. They've adapted. to the local culture, so that to continue to show their pride and their heritage, they have their own marching band. And I have here one of the medallions that they wear. You can come up and take a look at it later. And you have to pay to belong to this. I mean, there's a fee to belong to this organization. And you have to actually sponsor the floats that they have. And the unique part about the floats that they have is they're smaller than the ones that you see in Mardi Gras, because they're able to go down Bourbon Street and those little side streets. It's the old-fashioned type of floats, and it's really quite exciting to see. Now, I don't have a picture of it, but inside the Hilton Hotel also, what they do, I don't know, did you go to that?
No.
Inside the Hilton, they have a cotillion, and it's a coming out party. It's a coming out party for the eligible young ladies, and the oldest male of the family gets to march her around. Now, as legend goes, the Sicilians were starving in the 15th century. There was a great famine that hit the land. And as a result of it, the only thing that they had to eat and to sustain them was the fava bean. So because all they had was the fava bean, it became very, very special. And as a result of it, it is now considered to be a talisman. So it's a good luck charm. So I've given you each a good luck charm. I do this every year, not in this room before, but I've done this every year, giving out these fava beans, and people come back to me and tell me, you know, I got a job, I got married, I had a baby. It's a power of believing. So I will tell you that I carry one around in this little case all year long. I use all the help I can get. Lord knows that. So I ask you to, if you'd like to, you just stick it in your, ladies stick it in your bags, or gentlemen stick it in your pocket. And if you want to take an extra one to give to a friend before you leave, that's fine too. It is a nice tradition, and it's a good way to remember Saint Joseph, who they prayed to when they were in the famine, and they had the bean to remember it by. That's why the fava bean is there. Now, here's some more. I'm going to give some close-up examples of some of the pastries that they have. This is basically a modified cassava cake, which of course is with the delicious icing that they have, and inside of it has the ricotta cream that is spun so well with sugar that it's totally delectable. And of course, behind it, you can see some of the loaves of bread that have been shaped as well. This is New Orleans, though. So this, of course, the fish, the pesce, as we spoke, which is part of the festival, as Stephanie mentioned. It's of course for the fishermen and also for purity. Now, can you tell what that is? Yep, roasted fennel, right? Yeah, finocchio, roasted fennel, which is a big part of it, and of course you even have the ends of the fennel all the way around the sides of it as well. The artichokes. This is a big part of it too, because these are Sicilian delicacies. The stuffed artichokes, including the pasta con sarde, which to me is the best.
There it is.
There it is. And of course, it has the breadcrumbs on top of it. This one's a little bit different because they actually put tomato sauce on it too,
I know.
which is not typical Sicilian at all. Vinny.
We call that Milanese.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And if you come from the city itself, of Palermo, they don't serve it this way. But if you come from the surrounding areas, they make it this way and call it Milanese.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Instead of putting saffron in it, to make it the yellow.
My grandparents came from a little town from the east of Palermo called Caccamo, C-A-C-C-A-M-O, and my grandmother would make it with saffron. You know, and that's the way I grew up having it. I did not like it as a child.
Neither did I.
Now I can't get enough of it. You know, and it's because, you know, the sardines, you know, as a child they didn't taste all that great. You know, but now those flavors really are just, you know, just you die for them. Yeah, good, Vinny.
And the further you go out of Palermo, they begin to add other ingredients like broccoli.
Really?
And when my parents moved to the house that we lived in Long Island, they had all Sicilian friends from different cities, and they would have arguments. No, we put in cauliflower. No, we put in broccoli. And if you go to Sicily, you see there are many varieties. It's not like here, just Andy Boy broccoli.
Right, sure.
Over there, they got, you go 10 miles, it's a different
Broccolini.
version.
Yes. Thank you.
Many different traditions in southern Italy. In Lecce, you would think that it started in Lecce. There are some places that on the night before they do these bonfires. They keep these fires lit all night long until the next day. I remember as a kid, the first thing we did was go to church, then we'd have to go buy the bread, and then we went from house to house to see the various altars. And the last house we went to, we either took food, we bought food, or we ate there. And the priest would go and bless each one of these altars in private houses. It was a very, and the church that I went to was named St. Joseph, patron of the Universal Church. So I feel like this tradition was made just for me.
Next year, I'm going to invite you all back for St. Joseph's Day, and we'll put a table out. And I'd like you all to bring something to put on the table, and it doesn't have to be authentic. So don't, you know, just like Vinny's mentioning and Joe's mentioning all these different dishes that people have changed over time. If you have something, it doesn't matter what it is. It's the idea that you're just bringing something, you know, whatever it is that you'd like to bring. And we'll start our own tradition here on Mulberry Street and bring St. Joseph's. Unfortunately, many of the churches are closing. So, you know, it's up to us in the cultural institutions, not necessarily to keep the religion alive, but to keep the traditions alive, and to keep, which is really the culture. You know, and that's really what this is all about. So if anybody thinks this is a religious celebration up here today, well, I won't go into that. Anyway, here's some of the fig cookies that they make in New Orleans. That's where they find them there. Again, Santa Lucia's eyes. Again, that's what you got. Okay, nice close-up of it. Of course, what would a Sicilian experience be without cannolis? But of course, what we all know and love at this time of the year, and what we all expect to have, is spinach and zeppelin. You know, the spinach is the really traditional St. Joseph's bread, sweet bread. You know, it's gone from just plain bread to something very, very, very tasty, and it's stuffed, of course, with cannoli cream. You know, which is really what it has, and what it has inside of it. It's got that. It's made pretty much like, not like a donut, but fried like a donut, the outside of it, and then the cream is put inside, and of course some people put powdered sugar on it, some put cinnamon on it as well, all different types. Okay, and of course here's the last picture I have on display, with the St. Joseph's altar and the prayer. So, this is Stephanie Trudeau, who did her Fulbright on the traditions of St. Joseph, but in Sicily. Yes. So I'll give you Stephanie, who will take over.
I did a Fulbright in 2006. I studied 3 saints' feasts, also celebrated in Italian-American communities. One of them was St. Joseph. One of the things that I found so interesting in looking at America and the source, you know, where it starts, is they all do evolve. Even the simple banquet to thank St. Joseph for ending the famine, you know, just a simple table laden with food, evolves into Baroque structures of altars and breads crafted in all kinds of shapes, elaborate. The meal becomes 90 courses. There's 3 children, Tre Santi, who are Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and they sit at the banquet table and they're fed course after course, which is then presented to the community. I mean, this just becomes very elaborate. The same as Dr. Schultz has showed you in New Orleans. The interesting thing too in America I found, with all three feasts that I study, is that as they're celebrated in the United States, of course it becomes about identity here. It's not about identity in Italy. They know they're Italian. Here it's identity. And it's also, so it's Italian-American. So it's grafted onto American holidays. The Ceri, celebrated in this little town in Pennsylvania, is celebrated not May 15th, as in Gubbio, but celebrated Memorial Day weekend. The Giglio in Italy is the first Sunday after June 21st, but here in Brooklyn, or where I live in Brooklyn, it's the week of the 4th of July. So it's grafted, and actually in NOLA, they have, in New Orleans, they have the St. Joseph parade, which is also in conjunction with St. Patrick, because St. Patrick is 2 days before. So, it all becomes shared. It's a way of embracing, and it's a way of saying, I am Italian, but I'm also American, because we are. We're very proud to take on Americanism as well. In Sicily, and I do want to point this out, the feast is a woman's feast. Women are the main protagonists. They are center stage. Because a lot of feasts where there's the heavy lifting, it's the men. But the Feast of St. Joseph is women. The women organize it, they raise the money for it, and they make all the breads for it. Their husbands get to do some heavy lifting. They erect the altars, kind of akin to St. Joseph's carpentry skills. But women are really the center protagonists. I was very lucky to spend a month working with these women, making bread every day for the main altar that was going to be erected in the main church in the town, sponsored by the Pro Loco, the community, like the Chamber of Commerce. The breads are, again, the fava is very important. I have lots of photos, but I'm not going to be able to show them because it's not hooked up. The breads are kind of very elaborate. The fennel, the artichoke, these are all spring crops, because this is a feast about fertility, abundance, about spring. It's also very tied in the Passion of Christ. There's three main breads, these huge breads that are made. There's the Jesus bread, cugitado, and that has all the symbolism of Jesus' passion. It has the cross, it has the nails, it has the crown of thorns. So there's also this amazing, wonderful element. Remember, this is the middle of Lent, and we're heading towards Easter. Mary's bread, Parma, has roses and seamstress symbols, thread, thimbles, scissors, because Mary was a seamstress. Joseph's bread is bastone, and it's in the shape of the staff, and it has the carpentry tools. Saws, again, hammers, and I have a hammer. Hammer bread. Fava, figs. Figs are very important. Figs are, again, about fertility and abundance. Grapes. So all the fruits are about fertility, they're about abundance. Citrus, lots and lots of citrus. Remember, Sicily is a prime citrus area. That's about spring. They erect these arches that are covered in laurel leaves, again, spring, and they're laden with the fruits and all these breads. Some of the other breads, there's fish, there's the rooster for the cock that crowed 3 times when Peter denied Christ. So again, it's like all of these wonderful Easter symbology and symbolism, and then with all of the spring ripening of the earth symbolism, and wheat. Wheat's prime fertility symbol. So it's a kind of wonderful feast of abundance and generosity, because the food is all shared. And it started as a communal feast. It is still a communal feast.
This is the prayer that's on the other side of that little mass prayer card. And it goes like this. O Saint Joseph, whose protection is so great, strong, so prompt before the throne of God, I place in you all my interest and desire. O Saint Joseph, do assist me by your powerful intercession and obtain for me from your divine Son all spiritual blessings through Jesus. Below, bow your heavenly power, Christ our Lord, through your heavenly power, Christ our Lord, so that having engaged here below your heavenly power, I may offer my thanksgiving and homage to the most loving of fathers. O Saint Joseph, I never weary contemplating you and Jesus who sleeps in your arms. I dare not approach while he reposes near your heart. Press him in my name and kiss his fine head for me, and ask him to return the kiss when I draw my dying breath. Saint Joseph, patron of departing souls, pray for us.